Can I go, Millie? Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Wednesday, January 8th. It is 2:02 p.m. Call this meeting of the New Shoreham Town Council to order. We have Amy Land via Zoom, James Callahan via Zoom, Nick Solitro via Zoom. Our first item is to discuss and act on a request of Chris Warfel for support of a resilient microgrid for critical services grant for a microgrid feasibility study. This is something that Chris has been working on in his role on the Affordable Housing Board. He has worked with the utility district as well. In order to be eligible for this grant, the council would need to endorse it and send a letter of support. My understanding is that the utility district is sending a similar letter, which is one of the requirements. So that's the sum and substance of the background on this. Chris, do you want to say anything? Or Barbara, you're.
Thank you. Chris Warfel, Block Island Housing Board. As the first warden said, a requirement is a letter of support from the town that is within the microgrid application. And is everybody here clear on what a microgrid is? I don't know how, to belabor things or what kind of information you'd like to hear. So if you could provide some guidance, I will do what I can.
I think it's worth doing a 2-minute kind of what a microgrid is.
A microgrid is something that has become very popular these days due to resiliency concerns, and basically it's an electrical grid, small, micro, that serves critical needs of an entity. In this case, it would be the town of New Shoreham. And the nice thing about Block Island is that I think we have some advantages in that we have our own diesel power generation station. We have not an insignificant amount of photovoltaic energy systems. What we're missing are two components. One is energy storage, and the other is basically, I call it the brain that controls and makes a lot of decisions to maximize the benefit of the microgrid. The microgrid becomes a microgrid only in times of emergency. And a scenario would be that we have a tremendous hurricane and it wipes out the substation in Narragansett or trips it, or the transformer blows, and we're ending up to be operating on our own for quite some time, or even just days. So we would go into microgrid mode and our critical facilities would be served by the combination of these energy sources. Why the Block Island Housing Board is involved is because I have some professional experience in this area. In my last work, I was designing parts of microgrids, basically the solar electric DC side of it, and then the energy storage side. The utility side was handled by professional electrical engineers. We have a problem with the housing board in that we don't generate enough income, I feel, to complete our mission with alacrity. We, are very slow in our ability to build affordable housing. So I've been looking for ways to leverage anything that we have that could bring money to the housing board to help us build projects. And in this instance, after reading this, there's a perspective in the application of disadvantaged communities. And I think by definition, affordable housing does serve people who are disadvantaged. So with that, and with the fact that we have an asset of cash in the bank of a little over $1 million, and we have land in the Ball O'Brien project, which when we have our proposal for the project, we still have quite a bit of area left over. In that area, I thought part of it could be used as the energy storage site, or one of them. So that's what the housing board brings to this, in that we bring an energy storage site And we are very close by to um, two significant solar electric projects. One is the West Side 20, and the other would be the Ball O'Brien, because we have been awarded a grant from the Solar Initiative to put about 80 to 90 kilowatts of solar on those buildings. So we have two significant sources of PV, possible energy storage. And so that's what, again, we bring to this application. However, this is just a feasibility study, and that idea may prove not to be a good one. They are going to, they being the state and their consultants, will take a look at our situation and really make the best recommendation that they think is appropriate. Other possible sites for energy storage are, I think, the school, because of actually the electric vehicle transformer, or transformer serving that service is quite large in its capacity. It may be wise to split the energy storages devices between two locations to minimize risk. But the microgrid has proposed to include the medical center, the school, the town hall, police, fire, rescue, one of the harbors, and the ability that we can have power, electricity there to bring things off and on my power if we need to, and then the housing, the housing projects. And with that, I think that's the kind of resiliency that would let us operate on our own for some time if, a really serious situation occurs.
Thank you.
Can I just ask two questions? Because I had a question in here. It said that you had to include on part of the application a description of the property or properties you plan to include in the microgrid. So you're looking at like pretty much the whole island?
No,
Or are you just looking at like school, medical center, or just housing on the west side, or?
I do have the maps that would encompass the microgrid with what I think the technologies are that would go on that site. And those sites would be the school, the medical center, town hall, police, fire, rescue. I'm proposing New Harbor because it's so close to the Ball Bryan site. And then Searles B housing and West Side 20, because there again is a requirement, or strong suggestion that we should be looking at disadvantaged communities, and 10% of the island's year-round population lives in those places. And so I said, by definition, I consider those disadvantaged. So we would be serving those critical needs for those people. Now, the nice thing about having Block Island Power involved in this is they can electrically throw switches, build things that can connect parts of the island on an as-needed basis. You've heard of rolling blackouts. I can envision a rolling blackout situation. Okay, the microgrid's going to serve this part of the island for, this many hours. Get your refrigerators ready, whatever, heat up your house. I can see that happening. So it could be a rolling blackout situation, but I did not propose that because I just want to get us into the feasibility stage. I think that can be discussed if we are awarded the grant.
So is your thinking that we wouldn't be using the generators at the power company, or the power company wouldn't be using their generators, instead the microgrid would be used, or both?
Both. It really depends. The brain that goes with this would say, okay, we don't have enough energy storage, or it is a really bad solar day. We need another source of power. Let's dispatch the generators, or a generator, whatever is needed to meet the load effectively. So they would work in parallel. The nice other part of this is if we do get energy storage, it can assist our power company in leveling our demand, and that we would be using the batteries to displace high peak usage, maybe on a daily basis, maybe on a somewhat of a seasonal basis. That has to be studied too. But the idea of energy storage in the utility solar business right now is to use energy storage to provide energy into a utility at peak times of demand. And that's actually what the resiliency is one of the main goals of resiliency. So this would serve a critical power need, but it also could help us even out our load shaped, depending on how you look at things. So
And-
these energy storage devices are designed to be used daily.
And is the power company in favor of this? Are they on board with this
Bill-
idea?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we should hear from her.
Oh, it's true.
Barbara, you want to come?
Barbara McMullen, Black Island Utility District. The utility district is in favor of, certainly of supporting this grant application. It's a feasibility study. And we would learn a lot about how we could incorporate a microgrid into the bigger system. When we started our ETIP grant
Yes.
project, one of the items we had on our list of things to study was a microgrid up at the school medical center area in case there was a island-wide issue where we had no power, and you have this, you can isolate that area and they can run on their solar energy backup or whatever it might be. We had other priorities in that grant that we thought were more important to study, so we didn't add it. So I think this is a great opportunity for the island to learn about how a microgrid could be incorporated. And it certainly is a resiliency benefit to
Can I
the
ask-
island.
Can I ask a total layman's question? Do you have to overbuild wires, or do you use the existing wires
For a microgrid,
for a micro?
you would just use the
Just use the
existing.
existing?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether you had
Yeah,
to string a separate grid.
No.
or
Mm-mm.
How that worked. Okay,
Mm-mm.
gotcha.
no. So, I think it's definitely, it's a feasibility, it's a technical assistance, is my understanding. There's not going to be funding for this.
Right.
But to know how we could accomplish it, and then maybe once we have that study done, we can look for funding to do it. And the power company is sending a letter, as Chris said, in support. And we're going to provide Chris with the technical information he may need to provide in the grant application to strengthen it. So he's working with the power company
Great.
staff to
That's good.
gather that info.
And does the location need to be specified in this application, or is that a later on thing?
They do ask for locations and what's at those locations, why those locations. So I did explain that. However, it's a feasibility study. So my assumption is if we get a word, they'll come here and we'll say, well, in your application, you want to do this. We think this should be here instead. Not like they may say the energy storage should go somewhere else.
I'm
But-
just curious, obviously I don't have any idea of what it would look like from the application, but is this what is this? What would people be looking at?
Well, everyone's familiar with the generators and everyone's familiar with photovoltaic systems. They may say, well, you need, another 20% more solar to make this work right. The one thing we don't really know too much about on the island is the energy storage devices. I can tell you from my work, these are very regimented, segmented template devices that are, depending on who you go with, they can be 4 feet wide, 8 feet high, 4 feet deep. And they just set them right next to each other and they wire them together. So that's what you would see is that kind of, that depending on how many, which I don't know because the size is going to dictate the energy storage capacity and that all has to be designed out. But that's what you'd be looking at. You would be looking at containers, not cylinders, rectangles. What's the thing for this?
Big batteries,
Well, you wouldn't even know that they're batteries.
but that's what they are.
That's what they are, yeah. I thought I had sent a picture
I'm
around.
just picturing, when I go to the cemetery to my mother's grave, and would I be looking off to the right at something industrial looking? would it be better placed at the power company, the school, like someplace that's a little more built up, right? We have a very beautiful historical cemetery. Is that what, is that where we want it?
There are, I sent, Cindy had Pappas, the chair, had this similar concerns, I think. Do we even have the room? And I sent her a map that showed there's at least 3 locations on there. 2 are close to the road, away from the cemetery, and 1 is in the back of the housing project. So those are potential areas. However, during this process, those are concerns that you can raise, and that may be a reason for not putting it there.
Well, I guess, yeah, so the reason I'm asking is because I don't want to muck up the process later. So I'm asking, that's why I'm asking.
No, that's it. I think it's a feasibility. So I think that's a feasibility question.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, I was inappropriately asking Chris questions before we started because my question was, I'm all in on the sort of affordable housing area being one of them. But if we're talking about island-wide resiliency questions, would it make more sense to be focusing on the school and medical center because that's kind of our area of refuge where, if we have a catastrophic issue as we have, you'd be in cots in the gym and cafeteria, and that's where you go, and we'd still have access to healthcare on some basis.
Well,
Can
the
I just
electrical,
ask
Yeah,
a question?
of course.
When you talk about the affordable housing, the way the information that you gave us defines public benefit, I think it's going to be a stretch to qualify the affordable housing. I mean, even though you say it's for, a disadvantaged population, people are going to have a very difficult time accepting, the housing facilities as immediately servicing a disadvantaged population, and the public benefit is more at the school and the medical center, clearly.
well, the thing about the electrical system is that it can provide service to both facilities irrespective of where these devices are located.
But we do have to identify in the application as to where, where we're targeting. So I think it's kind of be a little disingenuous to
No.
put it up for one thing and then try to use it for something else.
No, I'm not being disingenuous at all. I do think that what we bring is a site for energy storage that is out of the flood zone and also helps us interconnect solar electric systems, which are necessary as part of a microgrid definition. So that's all in the narrative, and I will provide that to the power company and to the town so they can see what the feasibility application is. And also, if you read the application, it does talk about disadvantaged communities, and these are disadvantaged communities. And they probably would not be included as part of a microgrid if the energy storage system was not located right there. So because it's there, electrically, it's going to be interconnected there if it's there. And then that would be pretty much, the housing projects would be provided power because it's right there. If you put it at the school, then you're going to have to make sure electrically you're connected all the way back to the housing project to provide that kind of advantage to these type of communities. So it is, I understand that. And I said, this is kind of a circuitous application in the logic, but I think is worth it for the housing board to do this because it's a feasibility study. And if any of the things in the feasibility study application prove out not to be a good idea, they get amended.
But am I correct that the Affordable Housing Board hasn't voted on this officially or offered a letter of support for this, proposal?
We have, our last meeting, I brought it up.
But Cindy Pappas had said that, they haven't officially taken a position as to the affordable housing aspect of it.
They did ask me to go forward and do this.
They did.
Yes, they did. Otherwise, I would not be here. I know enough to get that. uh, going.
And my other question is the application that we had refers to a team. It looks like even for the feasibility study. I mean, so what are you looking, I can see where the utility board would provide some materials, but what are you looking at for from the town? Just a letter of support because it talks
That,
about
that,
two municipal.
that's all I'm looking for is a letter of support. The team, which again, we're under time constraint to get this in according to what I read from the application. The earlier we get this in, the better. But I did envision a team. And again, this is all just an application, so I wouldn't worry too much about us being tied to anything. Representatives. DIPCO board, DIPCO manager, municipal town manager, Tom Reesum, Mike Shea, housing board member, Christopher Warfel, New Harbor Facilities, Harbor Master Catherine McConville. Additional public interests, West Side 20, Gerald Pearce, President, Cyril Ball Housing, Jim Henthorpe, Facility Manager, Ball O'Brien Housing, Cindy Pappas, Christopher Warfel, Block Island Police Fire Rescue Town Manager, Town New Shoreham, Amy Land, Town of New Shoreham, Town Hall, Town Manager, Town New Shoreham, Amy Land, Block Island School Committee, Block Island School Medical Center, Block Island Health Services Board, Susan Stover, Chair. And I also put in the Block Island Grocery Store because they would be along the way, Mary Jane Balzer and Mark Hilton owners. So that is just what I wanted to raise to them because they were wondering who would be on your team. And I feel this is representative of people that would have a stake in this for this feasibility study. And we're also, I have to say that we're limited to 5 pages. So we can't really get too wordy in this. And I had to just,
Can I
this.
ask a question? It's a bit of a follow-up to Nancy's, if you don't mind. In this letter of support, it's, and maybe this is what generated my question. The letter of support is very focused on Ball O'Brien. I think if that's a possibility, that's fine, but I'm wondering if it would be acceptable to write a letter that is more general along the lines of, we actually are a community that is probably more vulnerable than most to this kind of long-term interruption in electrical service because of where we are geographically, because of our reliance on a cable, et cetera. And to me, that makes us a vulnerable and disadvantaged community. But I think what we're really looking at here, and you hit on this in the application, but the letter doesn't, that we're really looking at how microgrids in various spots across the island could contribute to our security and our resiliency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to target just the affordable housing.
I think you and I are in this,
Yeah.
probably in the same place.
Yeah.
So if you, but having said that, I don't want to, if there's a real prescriptive rules around how this letter has to be written, I mean, tell me that.
No. I'll tell you that letter came actually from the state for the most part, and I added to it. They gave us a template letter, and I said, okay, give me a template letter that
So
these
we
are
could
the
say a letter of support for the development of microgrids on Block Island.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I gave you several, not you, but I gave the town
Yeah.
several drafts.
Yeah.
And I said, please edit as
Yes.
appropriate. And I've done the same thing with the power company because I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth. I was just trying to get this forward so we could get it back and get it in quickly.
We have a remarkable capacity over the course of my tenure here to merely edit on the fly. So that's what we're witnessing now.
Okay, well, if you
Yeah.
write what you're comfortable with, I feel it should also support the housing board because we're the applicant. But as the town of New Shoreham, your goal is not to protect the housing board. Your goal is to protect all the citizens of this island, and you have to write it from that perspective. I totally understand that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and again, I think I got the feeling, Barbara, that the utility district would like to focus on the school and the medical center in your level of support. So let's just make it,
As
a very as general as possible. We support in some ways, I view this island as a microgrid in and of itself, but yeah, let's not be specific.
Amy, I assume you would be the signer of this?
Yeah, I actually have a technical question though for Chris. He mentioned the housing board being the applicant. Have you had conversations with OER about whether they'll accept that? Because my reading of the instructions say that the municipality, a school district, or one other entity is what they're looking for in terms of an applicant.
Yeah, I also asked who else could do it because I didn't want the housing board to be the preclusion of the application for this if we were limited to one as Block Island, the town of New Shoreham. And they said, no, you're a separate entity. You can apply for one and other municipal organizations can apply for one also.
So
Well,
they're
we-
not strictly requiring the town of New Shoreham to submit this. The
No.
housing board is a valid applicant.
We are allowed and the town can submit its own also.
We're going to
Wait,
submit a
It did
competitive.
say in here that more than one application could come from the municipality.
Yep.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to get
Yeah.
No, I
kicked
asked
out
that
of hand.
question,
Great.
and I do have that in writing.
So where I was going, Amy, is I'm happy to, I'm sure others are happy to, or you get a sense that from the council's perspective, a more general letter that's obviously supportive of the application that'll be before them, but do you want to draft that, or do you want us to take a stab at it?
That's
what's your-
fine. I'll take a stab at that
Okay,
and
great.
coordinate with Chris with any questions I might have.
Great. Is the council okay with that? I don't know if do we need a vote?
I would think we do.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would ask for a motion to support or to direct the town manager to provide a letter of support for this microgrid feasibility study.
So moved. Oh,
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
And you will be getting.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Should be invited this weekend.
Excellent. Item 2, Amy, do we need to go into closed for item 2? Yes.
Yes.
Can I have a motion to go into closed session?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We're now in closed session. Jeez, come on. If we had a microgrid, this would happen quickly.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Where's Neil to shut the door?
Amy, while we're waiting for Molly to come back in, there had been maybe 2 months ago or so, Karen, Browning had put together a memo for the planning board on one of the times where she came in with a bunch of changes that had to be made. And it was, yeah, zoning, and it was a very good memo. And, it might be helpful for the rest of the council to have a copy of that, to see what
About some of the
has been-
structural changes between, yep.
Yeah.
It's a good piece.
I can get that out to you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you, Millie.
Are we back, Millie?
I see it.
So we're reconvening the open session. As the agenda indicates, we had an update on litigation matters and an update on a couple of outstanding real estate matters. No votes were taken. Can I have a motion to seal the minutes?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. And we are now on to item 4, discuss and act on appointments of town attorneys. Is there any discussion about these, or are we ready to proceed to motions?
I just had one question, if I could.
Sure.
I'm just curious, James and Nick, how do you divvy up the requests? I mean, are there certain things that Amy would focus to you, James, and not to you, Nick, or do you do it between the two of you?
Question.
Go ahead, James.
That's a good question. It kind of goes in different ways. We split up the meetings. Nick does the first Monday, I do the third Wednesday. And then as for different assignments, they come through Amy's office or staff or you or Charlene, and we do it that way. There's no real perfect system, quite frankly.
It's been it's been a fair division of labor. James is too honest of a person. And I also, for what it's worth, handle the prosecution myself. But otherwise, as far as assignments, it's just been, if James is tied up, I'll jump on it, or vice versa. But it's been a fair division of labor that I think is worked out, and more importantly, probably, and for me, to speak candidly, a collaborative effort where I have somebody to bounce ideas off of, where maybe my initial reaction is, or my initial thought is checked in a conversation with James or a conversation with Amy. But ultimately, the division it's just been divided as fairly as we see fit. But if something comes along that maybe James is more suited for, or I'm more suited for, that's and we know each other's strengths and weaknesses, we'll divide matters accordingly with that in mind as well.
And we talk, now that I think about it, more often than I like to admit.
Yes.
At least once or twice a day. I didn't quite think about that till now, but it's good. It's good.
My cell phone statement is unhealthy with the amount of mentions of Callahan on there, but that's
I'm
beside
sure. And this is absolutely not a criticism. This is just curiosity on certain
It's a
things.
really, it was a question we had when we made this decision. And a couple of things I would mention about all three, Nick, James, and Karen, is my experience with each of them, and I think this is high praise. I feel extraordinarily well counseled, which is if you're sitting on a town council with a C, the most valuable thing on a day-to-day basis, or meeting to meeting basis, is to feel well counseled, and I value that tremendously and really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
So,
would definitely agree. I feel like every time I have a question, you guys get back right away, always very clear, super helpful.
Thank you, Molly.
So I do have when I was reading the contract, and this again is not a criticism, I think the contract, the hourly rate is very fair. It referred to meetings as bi-monthly. And as you both know, this council does a lot more, or has done a lot more than bi-monthly. So what happens when we have, or they have had 4 or even 5 meetings in a month? Is that still under the umbrella of bi-monthly, or is there an extra charge on that?
What happens is nothing. It's still included in the retainer. But now that you brought it to our attention, Nancy, maybe we can.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Nancy.
No, it's
Well, we're going to try to cut down the number of meetings anyway.
No, it's-
We'd love to go back to bi-monthly meetings
No, it's-
as best we can.
it's always been, and it's despite the language in the contract, we've always treated that within our retainer, no extra charge.
And then in terms of the language of the contract, where it deviates from, from the retainer to, is it basic litigation? Anything that involves court is an additional hourly rate, because the language seemed kind of confusing, and I would assume that's the intention under the
Yeah, I mean,
contract.
it's sometimes there's a gray area, and nobody knows better than you, Nancy, because you practiced. Is this litigation? Is this not? When you're in court, obviously it's litigation. We try our best to identify something that is either on a crash course for litigation, if we're going to bill it as litigation, or actually in court. But then you get gray areas where a council member says, "Hey, can I have an update on that matter that may be going to court? Should you be charging that at a litigation rate?" What I can tell you is we try to do the right thing. We try to be fair, and I haven't heard any issues in that regard. But my own assessment is, if I'm billing under the retainer or for a litigation matter, I ask myself, is this a matter that's either imminent litigation for the town or already in litigation for the town? And actually, a good example is we just talked for a half hour regarding litigation matters. I'm not going to bill that at litigation. James isn't going to bill that at litigation, because I view our conversation for the past half hour as a council meeting, not litigation. I'm not in court. I'm not litigating. I'm not pushing a case forward on behalf of the town. So that's a lot of talking with. We try to do the right thing and bill extra, for litigation when it is truly a litigation matter.
But I would assume that there's some other areas that you would charge. I mean, if we had you, say, get in touch with Mary Kay at DEM to work something out, that's not litigation, but is that under your retainer, or is that an additional charge?
I view a retainer. Wouldn't you, James?
Yeah, we do anything court related, we consider litigation. And we also have considered like show cause hearings, like the first month and a half, 2 months we were working, we had 2 show cause hearings, which caused us to go out to the island,
Right.
do a trial basically in front of you. We treated that as litigation, but besides that, I had a matter up at the
Resource recovery, right?
resource recovery. We had a meeting up there, multiple emails, letters, calls. That's not extra. That's just part of the umbrella.
Okay, thank you. As I said, this was not a
Good
criticism at all.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with everything that's been going on. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Millie, can we do a motion to appoint Nick, James, and Karen as one motion, or? Okay. Can I have a motion to reappoint Robert Craven, Nick Solitro, and James Callahan as town solicitors?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. I have a motion to reappoint Karen Browning of DeSoto Browning Law. That's a change. When we first retained Karen, it was her name was not on the shingle as our land use attorney.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Item 5.
Well, get one more
Yeah.
question. Sorry
Yes.
about that.
No.
So we also have what, a labor lawyer?
We do. We've got
It-
Tim Cavazza. He is actually working on a revised engagement letter, because while we all know that we've been with Dan, Tim took over from Dan. Nobody can find the original one, and it makes sense to update that. So he's working on that. We don't traditionally, or we haven't in recent years, appoint the labor lawyer separately. We just consider that an ongoing engagement.
Yeah,
If the council wanted to, you could, but it's not a practice that we've been in.
but we will have a contract with them and it's some sort of an agreement.
Yep, he's going to send over a new engagement letter. We also, just while we're making a list, have Ellen Corno is still our bond counsel.
Mm-hmm.
So again, a standing engagement with her.
Okay, fine. That was all I was asking.
Terrific. Item 5, I had a request from Bill McComb, who unfortunately it's good when the guy who works for the ferry gets stuck off island because the ferries are canceled. He requested that we postpone this matter until our next meeting. And I wanted to get a sense from the council of whether you wanted to do that. Okay, is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second,
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You.